It was a cold, quiet night when Noah moved into his new apartment on the 15th floor of an old high-rise. The view was stunning, a panorama of glittering city lights stretching endlessly. But the window had no curtains, and as he settled into his sparse, dimly lit living room, he couldn't shake the feeling of being watched. It started innocently enough, a shadow caught in the corner of his eye, a flicker of movement that he dismissed as nothing. By the second night, Noah noticed it again, a figure standing in the adjacent building across the alleyway facing his window. They were perfectly still, silhouetted against the faint glow of their apartment. Noah waved, hoping for a polite acknowledgement. Nothing. The figure just stood there, watching. He tried to ignore it, pulling out his laptop to work, but every time he glanced back, the figure hadn't moved. By the third night, the figure was still there. Noah laughed nervously, telling himself it had to be a mannequin or maybe a strange piece of art. Curiosity got the better of him, and he grabbed a pair of binoculars he had packed for an upcoming hike. As he peered through them, his breath caught. The figure wasn't a mannequin. It was a person, its face shrouded in shadow, but its eyes glowed faintly, like tiny pinpricks of light. Even worse, the figure seemed closer now, as though it had moved closer to the window since the night before. Noah decided to close his window, but as he walked toward it, his phone buzzed with a notification. He glanced down at the screen. It was a picture of him standing by the window, taken from outside. The caption read, "Don't close it." His blood ran cold. He spun around, staring out the window. The figure was gone. The next morning, Noah called building security. "There's someone in the building across from me. They've been staring into my apartment." The guard frowned. "There's no building directly across from you. That lot's been vacant for years." Confused and shaken, Noah returned to his apartment. The adjacent window was still there. How could it not exist? He spent the day trying to work, but his focus was broken. He kept glancing back at the window, but the figure didn't return. That night, as Noah prepared for bed, his phone buzzed again. This time it was a video. With trembling hands, he opened it. The video showed his apartment, filmed from the perspective of the opposite building. The angle panned slowly until it focused on his bedroom window. Noah froze as the camera zoomed in, and then in the reflection of his window, he saw himself, but he wasn't alone. A dark figure stood behind him. Noah spun around, but the room was empty. Over the following days, the events grew worse. Lights flickered uncontrollably, faint tapping echoed through his walls, and each night he would receive another photo or video, each closer and more invasive than the last. One video showed his sleeping face, captured from an impossible angle. Desperate, Noah taped over his windows and called the police. They found no evidence of a stalker, and the so-called building across from him didn't appear in city records. The final night, Noah sat in his living room, surrounded by the dim glow of candles after the electricity mysteriously cut out. His phone buzzed again, but this time it wasn't a message. It was a live stream. The feed was of his apartment. From his phone he watched as he slowly turned his head, though he hadn't moved. "What the hell?" he whispered, dropping the phone. When he looked up, the window tape had been peeled away, and there it was, the figure. But this time, it wasn't outside. It was inside the apartment, standing directly in front of the window, its hollow, glowing eyes locked onto his. Its mouth twisted into a grotesque grin as it whispered, "You invited me in." Noah's screams echoed into the night, but no one in the building would admit to hearing a thing. By morning, his apartment was empty. The only thing left behind was a single photograph, taped to the window. It showed Noah standing by the window, staring into the lens with glowing eyes and a wide, unnatural grin.